And dozens of African leaders and heads of states are meeting in the Kenyan capital Nairobi for the continent's first ever climate summit. Kenyan President William Ruto saying the aim is to have a stronger and much more united voice on environmental issues affecting the 1.3 billion Africans. But it comes amid frustration among some that developed nations producing the worst emissions are making unjust climate demands on pan-African policies. Among those speaking today was EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
The green transition will require an unprecedented scale of private investment. Private capital will need to be mobilized at scale. And here, green bonds are widely recognized as providing part of the solution. We will push on the investor side. Together with the European Investment Bank and our member states, we are allocating €1 billion to de-risk private investments in emerging markets. This could help to attract up to €20 billion in sustainable investment.
And joining me now is Professor Chukwumerije Okereke, a specialist in governance at Bristol University. Thank you very much for your time, Professor. This summit is clearly symbolic, but can it actually achieve anything, given that it's representing 54 very diverse nations?
It has the potential to achieve something, but whether it actually achieves something, we will have to see. I am worried that there is a distinct possibility that this could end up being a talk shop, and we have had several talk shops in the past. What is required is a political will and leadership and commitment to translate the pledges, the programs, and all of those targets into real action. And here, I have some doubts, but I have to be optimistic.
So will this gathering, for instance, truly help to expand renewable energy projects on the continent?
The access to renewable energy in the continent is arguably one of the most important things that has to happen. Africa has attracted only 2% of the global investment in renewable energy to date. And this is despite being a very, very good place for sun, for wind, for geothermal, and other renewable energy investment. So there has to be a commitment to de-risk investment in renewable energy in Africa. However, we must understand that all of this talk about private sector investment, whilst it is good, we also need a lot of public sector investment to go into renewable energy. And by the way, the program has to be such that Africa is able to actually add value and manufacture those renewable energy technologies rather than just importing all of them from China and from Europe.
Are there any examples of African nations who are actually already doing that?
Oh, yes. I do not have any example of any African nation that is actually already manufacturing. But Kenya, which is the host of this conference, has demonstrated the possibility of scaling up energy access through renewable sources from about 47% in the last 10 years to nearly 80% of access today. But a lot of the renewable energy technologies, even in Kenya, is still imported. And what I say to people is that we should be mindful that it is possible to have a green Africa that is poor, because all the technologies that are powering the green future or green economy of the future are imported from abroad. And this would be another version of neocolonialism, what we call carbon colonialism, and this should be avoided at all costs.
But there is anger among some in Africa that nations in the global north who are producing the highest carbon emissions insist on imposing unreasonable demands on African countries. Would you agree with this? Is that, in your opinion, the case?
The sentiment is growing day by day because Africa is receiving a lot of promise, but in practice, very limited support to actually develop the renewable energy technologies or the green technologies that can help to power the industries of the future. What we are hearing is that we must go further, we must go faster, we must cut carbon, but we are not receiving the commensurate support in finances, in technology that is required to achieve the transition. And that is why here in Bristol University, I am leading a research on just transition, ensuring that the transition does not just happen, but that it happens in a way that is cognizant of the fact that Africa also has to achieve development. And justice and equity really have to be at the heart of the green transition globally.
A UN report found that to help mitigate the effects of climate change, African nations each raise an average of around 124 billion per year. But so far they've received only a fraction of that, somewhere around $28 billion. Do you think, and especially given that not a news bulletin goes past without reports of extreme weather happening in various parts of the world, particularly in Africa, do you think the message is now getting through to African leaders that the time has well and truly come to step up to the plate?
I talk with a lot of African leaders, and what they tell me is that they understand the need for urgent action on climate change. After all, as you rightly indicated, Africa is at the receiving end of the climate change impact in droughts and food security issues, flooding. However, what the leaders also tell me is that they don't feel supported enough by the global community, especially the Western countries that are actually responsible, at least historically, for the bulk of the emissions that we are dealing with. So the will is there, but the support is lacking. And we are leading a campaign and effort to really sensitize a broader, corpus of people in Africa on the need to act. And the willingness is there. But my goodness, they need support from the international community to get this thing done.
Professor, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.